Everybody in their grid positions. The green flag is now in the air.
Oh no, Germandi makes a mistake! It's free wide! It's a free wide here at Salzburg. This is absolutely unbelievable!
A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We're here on the starting grid of race number 2 for the TCR Eastern Europe Championship. We're here at beautiful and sunny Autodrom Most, and as you can see behind me, the cars are ready for the second race of this weekend. For race number 2, we have the inversion of the top 6 for the results of the first race of this weekend, and therefore we have our race winner from yesterday, Martin Kadlecik, starting from 6th place, Křenek on pole position, and Adam Colt starting right behind. It's going to be a very interesting race, of course, for other 25 minutes of beautiful action here from Most. There's only less than 3 minutes, almost 2 minutes before the start of the formation lap. We're going to go to the commentary booth now. See you guys there to watch the action live here from Autodrom Most for TCR Eastern Europe. And here we are in the commentary booth for race number 2 of the TCR Eastern Europe round here in Autodrom Most. We're ready on the starting grid with our 10 drivers getting ready to face this second race here in the Czech Republic. Křenek starting from pole position after finishing in 6th in race number 1. Our race winner from yesterday, Martin Kadlecik, starting from 6th position. It's going to be quite an interesting event with Ivars Valers as well in the front row. Second position for him after finishing in 5th yesterday, and Adam Colt, originally 2nd on the road, has received a 10-second time penalty to be added to his result in race number 1, which dropped him out of the podium and into 4th because of a collision with Giacomo Germandi on the penultimate lap of the race, which put the Italian out of contention for the podium, only finishing in 9th and having to retire on the spot. Behind him, only Bartosz Grozek the other driver for Additis Racing, having an issue with his car following another contact in the opening stages of the race. And he will be starting from 10th as his teammate Martin Kadlecik is now the new leader of the 2025 TCR Eastern Europe Championship, following his phenomenal victory on Saturday. But we are now into a new day and of course a new race here for TCR Eastern Europe. Kadlecik and Koht are the main two rivals for the championship. Bartosz Grozek was also up there with them, but unfortunately for him, yesterday's retirement put him out of the race and de facto losing 25 points over his teammate Martin Kadlecik, who's now the leader. But as the cars tackle the formation lap, it is the best moment to have a look at the beautiful Autodrom Most, a track made up of 21 corners, 12 to the right, 9 to the left, for a total length of 4,212 meters. It is of course one of the best racetrack in the entire Eastern Europe section, and it is actually since 1983 the very first permanent racetrack opened in the Czech Republic. Of course, Most and Brno being the two most famous names on the motorsport scene in this country. TCR Eastern Europe being of course one of the staples of this track, coming to Most basically every year since the start of its career in 2019. But it's not the only TCR series there was here throughout the history of the track. Let's not forget the 2021 race of the Czech Republic for the WTCR, the TCR World Championship, happening right here now 4 years ago. And then in 2017 the European Touring Car Cup coming to the Czech circuit. Cars that are now coming towards the last couple of corners, and the light blue car of Žarko Knego will be lining up on first place. Second for Ivars Valers, whereas Adam Koht, Jiří Božinek, Petr Čížek and Martin Kadlecik make up rows 2 and 3. Vidis Mejkal starts from 7th position ahead of Petr Žvilagi, the latter who is sharing with Obertal car number 69. And then 5th row for those who were unfortunately unable to take the checker flag yesterday. Giacomo Germandi starts from 9th and Bartosz Grozek starts in 10th. So the last couple of cars are now on the starting grid. And as the green flag will wave at the back, the lights at the front will turn red, and as they go out, we will be racing here in Most for race number 2 of the TCR Eastern European round, with a great jump from Žarko Knego, an even better one for Adam Koht as he gets rid of Ivars Valers immediately. And we also see Martin Kadlecik already almost up into 3rd, a little bit of a lockup between him and the other Cupra, but it's Adam Koht in the lead as he overtakes Ivars Valers and Žarko Knego towards turn number 1, the latter being dispatched pretty quickly in the braking zone. And immediately Martin Kadlecik is in 3rd place. And now trying to come as close as possible to Žarko Knego. Meanwhile, what a start for Giacomo Germandi as well. He looks to be up into 5th place already, as he now puts Ivars Valers in his sights. The Italian gaining 4 places off the line, overtaking Žilagi, Žmejkal, Čížek and Božinek. Kadlecik overtaking 3 people and storming to 3rd, almost 2nd now, as Žarko Knego is under attack. But the same goes for Ivars Valers, as down the inside goes Martin Kadlecik, wasting absolutely no time into turn 15. The same goes for Giacomo Germandi, who's now up into 4th. It almost seems like 2 different categories at this moment in time, with Kadlecik and Germandi already hunting down Adam Coate, who's into the lead of the race. Lock up now for Jarko Křenek in third place with his Honda Elantra. One of the most difficult cars actually to set up for privateer teams. As Petr Cížek moves into 5th position, dispatching Ivar Svaljars quite quickly as the Audi tumbles down the order and down into 8th position. There's also now Wittschmaker under attack as Bartosz Grożek goes to the inside. Very tight line into turn number 1. He's going to try the switchback at the exit of turn number 2. And that is against Jirish Božinek, who was starting from 4th and now is back down to 6th because of Germandi and Kadlecik's amazing starts. Adam Coate, meanwhile, out in front with a 2.5 second gap over Martin Kadlecik. He looks to be by far the quickest one out of the gates, together with Giacomo Germandi, the latter being phenomenal throughout the first phase of the race. Didn't really expect him this high up the order immediately, though we did feel as though Germandi had plenty of pace from yesterday, where he was supposed to fight against Adam Coate for 2nd position up until the very end, before a collision put him out of contention for the podium and therefore even points. There are now around 2.5 seconds between Coate and Kadlecik in favor of the former. However, you have to feel for Kadlecik, who was starting for 6th position, definitely from a worse place compared to Coate, but he responded beautifully, already up into 2nd by the end of the 2nd lap. Let's see now if Giacomo Germandi will find a way through Jarko Křenek. A huge lockup for Křenek throughout the entire braking zone, as Germandi now goes into the side of him, as there's plenty of contact between the three, and proceedings are halted into turn 2 as Germandi looks to be stuck. Of course, the drivers behind them managing to find a way through, and that is also Grożek stuck between Germandi and the other cars, as the safety car is of course called out on track, and that's unfortunately the end, or almost the end, of a terrible weekend for Giacomo Germandi. He was so eager to move into 3rd place. He tried a very nice move into turn 2. Fortunately for him, however, Jarko Křenek did not see his car approach into his mirrors, and therefore that's what caused the crash, also involving Petr Cížek with the Cupra number 14 with extensive damage on the front end. And here is Jarko Křenek stuck, potentially in the gravel as well, just the car refusing to restart again. And of course, this safety car gives Martin Kadlecik the chance to catch back up to Adam Coate, as the two of them will now be separated by nothing once the safety car comes back into the pits. And this has opened the door for pretty much everyone else to fight for the podium, as Ivar Svaljars is now up into 3rd, thanks to the avoiding action that he took to be promoted into 3rd following this 3-car crash between Giacomo Germandi, who you see now is stopped at the side of the road, Jarko Křenek, who you now see on the other picture in the top left corner, and then of course the Cupra of Petr Cížek, who is also stuck on the outside of turn number 2. You can see it now with the drone cam also in the top left corner. So it's Adam Coate in front, ahead of Martin Kadlecik and Ivar Svaljars. Then it's Wittschmaker and Petr Žilagi in 4th and 5th, with the 2 Cupras from Express Auto Racing. They use the older model, the Leon Competition, whereas Cížek is using the brand new Cupra VZ. which unfortunately is out of the running right now. Such a shame, of course, for him. He looked mighty quick, especially yesterday, before crossing the line ultimately in 3rd position, but inheriting 2nd place after the penalty for Alan Coate. And then, of course, having a big chance of another podium place this time around. Unfortunately, though, that chance coming undone as he now has to retire. You can see also maybe some issues on the engine of the car, or at least wanting to check that damage if it hit other very delicate parts like the radiator, for example. Here's the replay of the accident. You can see Germandi trying a move into turn 2, Knego not seeing that attack whatsoever, and then Irish Brzezinek having to take avoiding action through the gravel, and car number 97 of Bartosz Grozek being stuck behind. There you could see Ivar Svaders going through, and also Vitschmekel able to take advantage of this incident to gain a lot of positions. Meanwhile, rather unsurprisingly, the red flag has been called out on track, and therefore proceedings have been stopped here with little over half of the race to go. 70 minutes and 20 seconds to be exact. Of course, the proceedings will have to be halted and all cars will have to be cleared. There are 3 cars scattered around the circuit, especially into turn 2, with damage to both the Cupra of Petr Cížek and the Hyundai of Jarko Knego. So we have a little bit of a break now with all cars back in the pits. Here's the replay that saw Giacomo Germandi and Jarko Knego come together. Contact that then affected both Petr Cížek and Bartosz Grozek, while other drivers had to take avoiding action. And that is race over for the 3 cars that you see stopped on tracks. That is Jarko Knego, Giacomo Germandi and Petr Cížek. Instead, Bartosz Grozek was able to keep going, though he has tumbled down the order to last place. The red flag is therefore now on track, as you can see from the graphics as well. All cars are in the pit lane behind the safety car, and we will have to wait for other news before being able to go back out on track for what is, in fact, race number 2 of TCR Eastern Europe. And this will be very interesting to see whether or not Adam Coate and Martin Kadlecik will actually fight for the lead of the race once proceedings resume. We know how difficult it can be for drivers to wait until the race gets back underway, since of course mentally a driver is ready to go from lights out, and then having to take such a break is usually very tough on them, as we always hear in driver interviews. Right now we're gonna have to wait for more information from the stewards and race control, even though we see car number 14 being recovered by the crane, and car 74 of Jarko Knego basically through the same fate. That is of course great news, because it means that the track is being cleared at record pace, which is always great to see. And here we have the remaining 7 cars which are now out on track, and of course we'll have to fight once we go back to green. can see now all cars waiting in the pit lane. We're gonna have to wait and see what the stewards say. I'm guessing we're about to receive some information regarding the restart time. As for now, the red flag is still out, but you can see that the cars have been cleared, at least from turn 1. This is the Honda FL5 of Giacomo Germandi having to be secured, and is also near one of the marshal posts, so the recovery of the car itself will not be an issue. Of course, there also need to be the medical checks to see whether all 3 drivers are okay. Naturally, both Křenek and Čížek are out of the cars because they have been cleared from the track, whereas Germandi's car is still near the barriers. Meanwhile, we're waiting for official confirmation for a potential restart. The race has been stopped with 17 minutes and 20 seconds left. That is a bit over 2/3 of the way to go. And that is, of course, plenty of time for our drivers to fight. Meanwhile, the race, of course, has been stopped, and the clock has stopped as well. Unlike other races, the sprint events do not see the clock ticking as the red flag is shown. Meanwhile, the incident between Jaco Křenek and Giacomo Germandi is under investigation, as it was, of course, normal. It is not a surprise whatsoever to see that. Here I see a beautiful lake near the track. Plenty of jet skis around as well. It's been quite a tricky weekend weather-wise. We've had some rain on Friday, especially with a heavy storm in the afternoon, right before the end of practice. And then yesterday we also had some drops of rain exactly when TCR Eastern Europe was supposed to go out on track, which is why we then had a bit of a wet race at the start. Then, of course, it cleared up and gave us the opportunity to enjoy a rather dry race in the latter stages. But of course, that is not everything, and we will have to wait and see what happens in the near future. Meanwhile, you can see there's also plenty of mechanics in the pit lane. And naturally, all of them waiting for the signal that will give them the chance to once again go out on track with their cars. Usually mechanics are not allowed to touch the cars once in the pit lane under red flag conditions. So that is why we are waiting for the best moment to restart. Of course, the official procedure would be to wait for the 10-minute mark. Meanwhile, here is the replay of the contact that put out all 3 drivers from the race. That is unfortunately very, very unfortunate for especially Petr Čížek, who was not involved in the original contact, but then had to eventually call it quits. As of course, it was quite a heavy impact, damaging the entire front part of the car. Of course, the team will then check whether or not we have any damages to the radiator or anything else, trying of course to make it so that the car can go to the next round without too many issues. And speaking of the next round, well, TCR Eastern Europe still has plenty of races to go, because this is so far, at least for the season, round number 3. In fact, ending the first half of the season. Then we have 3 other very compelling rounds. First of all, we will be back at the Slovakia ring this year for the first time with the TCR cars, but of course it's a circuit that the championship knows extremely well, and we will be racing there after the summer break from the 22nd to the 24th of August. Then it will be time for the Czech Republic to be once again the center of attention in Brno. Meanwhile, here is the car of Giacomo Germandi still having to be recovered. It's taking a bit more time to work this one out compared to the first 2, which of course were much closer to the track itself and the start of the pit lane. And now the operations are up and running to recover Giacomo Germandi's Honda as well. It's a car that made its debut on the TCR international scene back in 2023, the FL5. The previous model, of course, being the FK70, the older Honda model, which had lots of success throughout its history, but naturally with time passing, the car has become less and less competitive, and now of course it has been replaced by the FL5 pretty much everywhere, from local TCR championships and regional TCR series such as TCR Eastern Europe, to even the biggest of stages, the TCR World Tour, a new concept that started off in the last couple of years. And it is of course one of those places where the Honda has had the opportunity to shine throughout the entire season. We're seeing now the car of Giacomo Germandi being recovered. It has not been easy to do that, but finally we look to be done, at least with this part, and we can be ready to get going once again. You can see now the crane taking the Honda, going back to the racetrack, and then escorting it out of the racetrack. It was a real shame, of course, to see this race end off like that for them, and for Giacomo Germandi in particular. He was looking mighty quick, especially for such a difficult start to the weekend. It has not been easy for Giacomo Germandi, taken out of the race yesterday while fighting for second position, and then this year fighting for the title, but then of course no points awarded today either, due to that very unfortunate crash with Žarko Knego. Meanwhile, we have finally received confirmation that the restart will be behind the safety car in 10 minutes time. That's the word from race director, and we're glad to know that we're about to get things underway once more. It is, of course, exactly what we wanted to hear and see, as the race, as per usual, will then restart behind the safety car. The clock will start ticking from 70 minutes and 20 seconds downwards until, of course, we get to the very end. You can see here the beautiful start finish straight. There is some sun finally today. It was quite cloudy throughout the entire day, but now things have definitely improved, which has left us in a position of seeing a race with plenty of sun, which is naturally exactly what we like. Despite, of course, the rain playing a pretty pivotal role yesterday, we had a lot of fun with it, but naturally it's not like we can do that all the time. And now you can see the car of Giacomo Germandi finally being escorted out of the track. It's been a bit of a long one, but as you can see now, this is of course an older communication of a couple of minutes ago. So we have less than 10 minutes now to get until the very end of the lengthy red flag period. We're hopefully getting ready now to start once more, and we actually are, as I told you guys before, with now less than 7 minutes, actually 5 minutes now before the race start of the race behind the safety car. Of course, this is a very unfortunate way to end the weekend for Giacomo Germandi. He will try and be back stronger in Slovakia after the summer break, which is of course will be very helpful to try and get rid of all the negativity and try and come back as strong as ever, especially for the last part of the season. Right now you can see, of course, the crowd as well. There's plenty of people this weekend watching the races here in Most. Of course, this is one of the most important race weekends, not just for the calendar of the track, but for the country as well. Happening the weekend after the amazing MotoGP race in Brno. Speaking of bike racing, of course, Most being very, very famous in the last few years for its Superbike World Championship round, which has happened here since 2021 and has come to Most on a 5-year deal. Meanwhile, we're getting ready to reopen the pit lane. Less than a minute now before that happens. And that is lovely news, of course, for those who are wanting to see some racing happen. We also hear the roar of the engine. As here we go with the cars finally out on track once more. As the safety car leads Adam Coate and the rest of the field out of the pit lane following the red flag that was caused by an incident between Jaco Knego and Giacomo Germandi. Here are all the cars, the 7 remaining cars in this race, ready to fight for as long as possible in the remaining 70 minutes or so of racing. Now, with only 60 minutes left on the clock, they will have to be very quick in understanding when to attack and when not to. We talked about this earlier today. It is very hard for drivers to reset their minds and start thinking about a second part of the race. So long ago we had our first ever start. Meanwhile, the safety car will be in at the end of this lap to finally be able to be racing once more. Adam Coate and Martin Kadlecik, the two drivers in front. Here we are getting ready for the restart. And we are getting ready for this incredible event to start off again. And naturally, we are now back underway for race number 2 here of TCR Eastern Europe. And unfortunately, we already see Jiří Božinek missing his braking point. Naturally, it is quite hard to find the right braking zone, especially given that it's quite difficult for the drivers to end up making their brakes hotter or colder than expected, which is why now they are trying to make it work. Adam Coate still leads with Martin Kadlecik right behind him in second. They are trying at least their hardest to make it work, especially in this first part of the restart. We have Ivars Valers in 3rd position, though of course Yannick Motorsport will be looking to improve on their position. And of course there's also Bartosz Grozek. Here he goes. Ange Božinek trying to get a move done. We are now towards turn number 18 and 19. And around the outside goes car number 97, taking home another place. That was a phenomenal overtake. At least that is what we have been accustomed to seeing this year from Bartosz Grozek, who was in the fight for the championship, but however, that unfortunate end to the first race did not help the team either. Here we go instead up top. Božinek now behind Grozek. The same fight between Yannick Motorsport and Aditis Racing about to burst for the lead, though you can see Coate now has a bit of a gap over Martin Kadlecik. And that's of course very, very useful as the two of them go towards what is now the second half of the race. We'll be seeing whether or not that will come into a fight or whether Adam Coate will be able to make a break for it, which is exactly what has been happening so far. The restart, we all thought that Martin Kadlecik could get closer to Adam Coate, but instead that is not what happened. And we now see how difficult it is for them, for all the drivers, to find the right rhythm, as the images stay on Bartosz Grożek, because now he is getting closer to Witschmaker for 4th position. That is the Cupra Leon of Express Auto Racing against the Audi RS3 of Additis Racing. Naturally, Grożek being a bit faster, and you can see how the car leans on the left-hand side, basically lifting the rear right tire, which is a phenomenon that seldom happens, especially in these cars and on these corners where all the weight is on the other part of the car. Meanwhile, Adam Code out in front, improving lap after lap after lap. And we will be now seeing him make a pit stop. Of course, not usually what happens in these types of racing. And here is the fight for 4th position. Witschmaker trying his best to keep the position, but now Bartosz Grożek moves to the inside. It's a very late move, but good enough to try the attack. However, it was a great defensive move by Witschmaker on the outside, but of course now the switchback seems to be in favor of Grożek with a better exit off of the corner, and he looks to be in front by the time the two of them come to turn number 6, and that is perfectly done from both of them. Such a perfect line through there by Bartosz Grożek. And we've seen it a couple of times how drivers try to prepare the second part of the chicane by by steering quite earlier, and then of course gunning it on the outside line, cutting through the corner, and then eventually making it to meanwhile, Ivas Valers, it's still him who's holding 3rd position. That is naturally the most important result in the fight for the podium. We have no idea whether or not Kote and Kadlecic will start fighting and losing time, but the two have around 5 to 6 seconds of an advantage over Valers. Meantime, Zbozinek is now on the back of Witschmaker. Fortunately for him, the latter does not seem to have the pace to keep up with Grożek, but to be fair to him, very few people do. And now we are towards the final part of the race, the last 7 minutes and 35 seconds. And here we go, especially for Witschmaker. This is a golden opportunity to gain as much time as possible and as many points as possible as well, given that only 7 cars remain following that incident between Jarko Knego, Giacomo Germandi and Petr Cizek, which are usually drivers that are always fighting for a top 5 finish. And now with less than 7 minutes to go, it's Schmecker who occupies that position. Meanwhile, Adam Code still 1.5 seconds in front of Martin Kadlecic. And here he is, the race leader. We've not been with him that much, but he's been racing on his own since the restart, which he judged beautifully to gain a second already on Martin Kadlecic. Now the gap up to 1.8 seconds. And meanwhile, Kadlecic goes straight on into turn 1. He misses his braking point again. Well, it's the first time for him today, but not the first time that we see a driver make that mistake. and unfortunately that is not cool from him, and of course that will be a lot of time lost for Kadlecic, and that is in fact probably race over in the fight for the win. Not that Adam Cote had other plans, since he was increasing his lead lap after lap after lap, but he was being very careful, Martin Kadlecic, in order not to step over the limit. But unfortunately for him, that limit has been in fact stepped over, and that means that he has lost quite some time over Adam Cote, especially in this lap. Cote now with a big chance of making it to yet another race win, climbing back the time and the places and the points he had lost yesterday from Martin Kadlecic, which is of course great for him in the championship standings, which saw Adam Cote lead before the end, or before the start of this weekend, and now before the end it's Kadlecic with the upper hand. But of course we still have around 5 minutes to go in this race, and then of course 3 other rounds in this season, which will be taking us all the way to Balaton Park for the end. And now we are towards the second half of the lap. And Adam Cote has been absolutely flawless so far today. And here you can see the drone cam, which of course is one of our peculiarities, especially in these weekends, as now over the Orlen Bridge and under it goes Martin Kadlecic. Trying to gain as much time as he can, though of course the gap now over 3 seconds after that slight mistake that saw him lose a lot of places. Now you see Martin Kadlecic starting what could be the penultimate lap of the race. It's not every day that you see a race this long in TCR Eastern Europe, of course, because of the red flag halted proceedings regarding this race number 2 of the weekend. Adam Cote, though, still in the lead with a 4.7 second gap over Martin Kadlecic. Meanwhile, the fight for third is ready to ignite the passion of the fans here in Most, as we have once again Libers Valers, who has to defend from Bartosz Grożek, who now seems to find an opening. Couldn't do it that time around, however, as Valers shuts the door. We now see the both of them go through the second half of the circuit. It's these very fast corners that usually make the lap time for the drivers, but it's quite tough to overtake around here as Grożek tries to find a place. It's the battle of the Audis for third place. The Hyundai of Cote is likely going to win this as they start the final lap in just a couple of seconds time. But now the fight for third sees Grożek go around the outside of Valers, who defends into the penultimate corner. Maybe the switchback for Grożek, who finds a way through. No, he doesn't. Brilliant defending from Valers, who now starts the final lap of the race. But now Grożek has the upper hand in a straight. He had a better exit off of the final corner with the switchback once again. Can Valers maybe find something around the outside. Now it's going to be way too difficult for him to do so, and therefore he has to settle for 4th position as Bartosz Grożek moves into 3rd for what is an impeccable race so far from him. Meanwhile, Adam Coate doing the best job he can and the best thing he knows how to do, which is win. Yannick Motorsport, of course, coming from a double title here with Macho Homola in the last couple of years. And now it looks as though Adam Coate will once again take victory. It's going to be quite tough, however, to repeat the success that Macho Homola has had in the last couple of years, because Martin Kadlecik has been mighty quick this season, but as the clock strikes 0 in this exact moment, Adam Coate is going to round out the final 2 corners, and he is about to take the checkered flag to take the win in race number 2. It's Adam Coate once again on top, starting from 3rd. He is able to climb to the finish line in 1st. What a race from Martin Kadlecik as well, taking home 2nd position, and 3rd goes to the other Additives Racing car of Bartosz Grożek from 10th and last place on the grid on the podium. That is an amazing performance from the 2 Additives Racing teammates, finishing 2nd and 3rd. However, it's Adam Coate taking the win. Here is Gilagi as well, coming home in 7th. And let's not forget about the retirements of Giacomo Germandi, Jarko Knego and Petr Cížek. And in the end is car number 68 of Adam Coate taking victory. And what is a phenomenal showing once again, and his prowess in this car has never been in doubt. Of course, he was one of the most competitive drivers in the last couple of seasons. And this is the final standings, with Adam Coate taking the win, just ahead of Martin Kadlecik, with Ivars Valers actually finishing in 3rd because of a penalty for Bartosz Grożek, who has been demoted to 5th position at the end. Of course, DNFs of Jarko Knego, Giacomo Germandi and Petr Cížek. And so joy for Ivars Valers as it takes a podium in race number 2 of TCR Eastern Europe. Those were the highlights of race number 2 for TCR Eastern Europe. The next round of the season will be in Slovakia, the Slovakia ring, from the 22nd to the 24th of August. Thank you so much for being with us, and see you guys then.